should we get started? Thumbs up. Okay, this meeting is being recorded. So hang on. Let me turn my heat down. Okay, let me share my screen. Typically, I do not go into presentation mode so I can see all your lovely faces. And then I realized one of my slides is animated, so we'll figure it out. Okay, you guys can see my screen? Yes? And I can still see you. I love it. So this next 60 minutes or so, do people have a little bit longer? Because I feel like if you do, we can go longer. This is all about writing your best-selling book. My name is Kristin Gutierrez. For those of you who don't know me, I am a best-selling author of Be a Better Sales Leader. I wrote my book in literally 3 months. And I'm here to share the best practices and the strategies that I learned in order to help inspire you to do the same. Just going to check out the chat. Okay. I'm also a keynote speaker. If you have any events, shameless plug, bring me into your company events. I can speak on getting out of your own way. I can speak on imposter syndrome, and I can speak on a lot of amazing things. So today it's all about what you need to think about in terms of your book and how the book itself should be structured in order to make it like the most meaningful, have the most impact, right? I didn't know these strategies before I wrote my book. In fact, I'm one of those people who literally was just like, how do I get ahead in my career? How do I keep climbing the corporate ladder? Oh, I should write a book. Like, I didn't grow up thinking I should write a book. And I want you to know that, like, this is your first book, right? Nobody here has written a book yet. So like, remember that this is your first book. This does not need to be your life's literary work. It is meant to be the first book, okay? So when you think of it that way, there is a little bit of done is better than perfect mentality that comes with that, because anything that you think of in the 11th hour, and you'll be like, I should have called my book Be a Better Leader. Because so many of the strategies and tactics that I share in Be a Better Sales Leader actually have nothing to do with sales at all. And it wasn't until, well, I was at the 11th yard line or the 99th yard line, like almost about to publish the book, that I really realized that. And I made the choice just to push through, because I can rewrite the book. I can come out with another version of the book. I can make my next book be something else in line with more about leadership. So I want you to keep that in mind, that it doesn't have to be everything, right? And the other thing that worked extremely well for me was to have a community like this of other authors that I was able to like go on this journey with. And this is the slide that is automated or animated. Hang on one second. One second. Okay, let's see. Let's just see real quick. It's really cool. Okay, yes. So Be a Better Sales Leader. It's got 33 reviews as of like over the weekend, right? My goal is to help teach you why becoming a bestseller is like where you're trying to strive for, because you want people to read your book. But did you know that most people don't read past the 3rd chapter of a book? I didn't know that. So like, how many times have you picked up a book and then not finished it? So like the first 3 chapters is really where you have to hook the readers, and you have to write the book so much that people want to keep going. Now, my book ended up being like choose your own adventure. Your book does not have to be like this, but mine was meant to be, they could thumb through the table of the contents, and they could say, oh, I want to learn about imposter syndrome. So I don't need to read the whole book in order to find out about imposter syndrome. I'm going to go to the chapter that speaks about imposter syndrome. And so there's more than one ways to skin the cat, but think about your book being a modular puzzle, so that like various pieces can fit together depending on what somebody wants to get out of it. It helps increase engagement, and it helps ensure that like, even if you don't read my book cover to cover, you are going to be compelled to pick it up because you want to see something that's in the book, and maybe you're going to read only 3 pages of the book, And that will actually, like, you want to draw your readers to you, right? And so I'm sharing some of these stats here now, and because I think it's interesting to know that, like, the strategies that I teach, that I learned, is like how to hit bestseller, because then you can say you're a best-selling author, and then, like, my current employer, I didn't know our CEO until I wrote the book. I wrote the book. He sent me a DM on LinkedIn. Hey, congrats on the book. We should have a call. And then we had a call, and then he brought me in as a consultant. And then ultimately I ended up working for him, which is crazy. And 2 of my team members are here. So thank you, ladies, for joining. But this is what you do is when you, and I'll talk with you about some of these strategies, but I just wanted to share that, like, the Be a Better Sales Leader, you guys, in case you haven't picked it up, it's 115 pages. Half of my book is blank pages on, like, worksheets and, like, various, if you've been to my masterclasses, you know, I typically share, like, a ton of worksheets and whatnot. So, like, think about what you're trying to convey with the purpose of your book, and then think about how your readers can walk away with some practical or tactical strategies to literally, like, move with them right away. Okay, so enough about me. When we think about the book, I'm going to spend the most time on the next slide, which is, like, thinking about outlining the book, right? Which is kind of also in a different order than what you might be thinking. So the last slide I have is all about, like, what to do first. And, like, you might be shocked that we're going to design your cover, the front of your book. We would design it first. We want to start capturing email addresses from the beginning, and we want to start advertising our book before, like, we even start writing, but at least at the beginning of our writing journey, because you're going to take your readers or your potential future readers along with you. And everything that ultimately you share in your book, you could condense as a giveaway and give it away. And so it's like all of my chapters independently of my book can be given away as a one-off chapter. I was just talking to an author the other day, and she's like, I'm going to post YouTube videos. I'm going to do an Audible of my book and post it as a YouTube video. And so, like, every chapter of my book is basically going to be available on YouTube as independent videos. And great if somebody wants to go through and read them all for free, right? Because you're not going to ultimately make $1 million from the book itself, but you're going to find potentially $1 million in opportunities, or you're going to build thought leadership and credibility. So one thing I coach employees and leaders on is how to create thought leadership, how to lean into our own thought leadership, into our own expertise, and to speak at conferences in our industry, or to write a book, or to write articles, or to do LinkedIn live stuff, whatever this content stuff is, how to leverage it as thought leadership for yourself to help you grow and expand in your career, in your role, or if you're a consultant or like an independent, right? And so when we think about the book, we're going to think about what's known as the hero's journey. You can Google this, right? This isn't something that my mentors came up with. But you want to think about the overall book in terms of, like, what the hero's journey is. And again, the next slide's really going to go into detail. But whereas you were called to an adventure, because like if you're writing like a romance novel, this isn't going to work, right? But if you're writing a book on business or helping people in advance in their careers, or give people advice, or all the other things, then this will work. So you were called to an adventure. And so the adventure was that I talk about in the very first pages of my book is I was selling retail. I was working retail in downtown Chicago, Saks Fifth Avenue. I was opening the most number of credit cards in their flagship store month after month. And I had a boss that would be like, pick up that shirt. And so I was being micromanaged and I wasn't making any money. and I stumbled into the localization industry as an inside sales person for now RWS, then SDL. I was an experiment, and it turned out it worked. But the thing is, I was quickly promoted within like 18 months to manager of global inside sales. My parents were like, "What do you do?" And I didn't have a blueprint. There was no playbook. Nobody had ever done this job before. And I was flying at like 23 years old. I was flying to the UK once a quarter, and I was managing this team of like older gentlemen. And we were doing inside sales to support the sales team's initiatives. So this was my call to adventure, right? And then I met a mentor, right? Because somebody who ultimately believed in me, that's why I got promoted. They saw something in me. And that then helped me say, well, I'm going to fake it till I make it. That's actually one of the subtitles of my book, is like fake it till you make it, right? And that doesn't have to be a mantra that you live by. It's just like, this is what I went through. And then of course I tried things and I failed forward. This is another concept of my book. And then you learn how to do this thing that there was no playbook for. And then you had a revelation, and then, you had, and so let me go into the outline. So when you're writing your book, you want to think about how to structure the book based on the hero's journey as it relates to getting the most out of your audience, your readers, at a time when it's going to make the most sense for them. So if you follow this outline, this is where you fit in all the things. Now, it doesn't mean that your book is going to have 9 chapters. Mine doesn't have many more than that because it's only 100 pages, but it's 16 chapters. So sometimes you're going to have a chapter that ultimately is going to be multiple chapters. You get to decide as the author, do you like to read long chapters? So let's say in the chat, do you like to read long chapters or short chapters? Let me see where I put my chat. Because I think it's cool. I'm gonna go into share the other mode. I think it's cool, like, to you to start to visualize what is going to work best for you and your audience. I'm going to reshare. Oh. Okay. Short for me, but with meaning. Short ones. Okay. Well, ironically, so far everybody likes short. There is no right or wrong answer, right? As an author, I decided, what do I like, and let me write that way. Actually, had I taken a second to slow down, which for me, I had no time, because if you know my story, I started writing the book March 1st, which was my birthday. And then I got laid off from my job April 17th. And then the book came out Memorial Day. So like May, whatever that was, of last year. And so in 3 months, my book came out, and I had no time, because now I was laid off from a job and I was already consulting, and I was using the book to help, right? But for my next book, which is also why I'm doing this, because I'm going to come out with a second book in 2024. I would who here has like picked up a copy of my book? And it's okay if you haven't. Yay, Anka. I know Anka's amazing. She has a podcast, Language Surfers Language. Yes. Okay. So you'll see that, like, this is just a random page. You see all the white space? Do you see all the white space? I wish there was 10 times more white space, not so that the book would be that much bigger, but because I think we're so used to reading social media now, with like everybody copyright, and I do it, the copywriting of like 1 sentence, 2 sentences, 1 sentence. So like, it's okay. You can come out with a second version of your book, right? But write your book short chapters if you like short chapters, or in a copyrighted way. You don't have to write in big paragraphs. Like, it's your book. You can do whatever you want, is the whole point. It's very freeing when you know that you have permission to write the book however it is going to best serve you and your readers. And following this outline is going to get more people to pick your book up, and it's going to keep more people engaged throughout, even if you're like me and it's like a choose your own adventure type thing. So what is the problem? So what is the problem that you saw? So what is the name of your book? Be a Better Sales Leader. And what did I see is that there's not a lot of training for sales leaders. I mean, there just isn't, right? So like, how do people learn how to be a better sales leader? Well, I deduced that. I came up with my theory or my tool, which is on line 4, what my system is. And I called it 3 pillars, not steps. Steps means you do things in sequential order, and your theory might be steps, but mine were pillars, which meant every pillar could independently live on its own. And the first pillar is all about asking for help, getting a mentor, like physically, like doing the thing, like raising your hand and being like, I don't know how to do this thing. The second pillar is all about consistency. So in this case, because it was sales, it was like consistency in the sales processes, how to coach your teams on how to be more consistent with tracking metrics and, you know, using the tools available to them, right? So the second part was all about consistency. And then the third part was all about professional development. So these 3 pillars were my tool, my system, my solution to helping sales leaders step into being a better leader, right? So I saw the problem. There are no resources for me. Then, you know, I went from inside sales manager to individual contributor for years and years and years to then a manager, a director, and a VP, right? And so like, how do people stepping into the VP role or the director role get training on how to be a sales leader? And then why did it have to be you? So this reluctant hero part is so critical because the first chapter, and I would urge you to make it 1 chapter because again, people don't read fast, right? Or read much further. So the problem, condense it and make that problem painful and obvious as to what you saw. And then why did it have to be you to solve the problem? Why were you the reluctant hero, if that makes sense? Why was it me? Why was it me that had to write this book? And that's kind of where you start to say, I'm giving you my backstory so that you can kind of understand this in context of like how to do it for your own self, right? But it's like, for my book, it was like, I didn't have a blueprint. Nobody handed me the playbook to say, cool, now you're a VP, or cool, now you're a global manager of inside sales. Like, here's how you do it. So it had to be me because I recognized it didn't exist. And now here is the playbook, here is the blueprint, here is the proven systems to unlock greatness within your team. Here is what I have to offer. Okay. And then to me, this is a little backwards, but this is only because like I feel like the myths you would share before, but you're trying to get the reader to flip the pages in the book, right? So problem, reluctant hero, myths. Now, myths is typically where you start to insert third-party research, right? It's like, here's what other people believe, or here's, I have some good strategies here, but like here are things that people typically believe about this that are not true. And then the tool, you want to introduce the tool. So say, I came up with these 3 pillars basically to solve for being a better sales leader. Now, you could come pick up this book, even if you've already been a sales leader, or in this case, a leader, and you could be really good about professional development, or you could have like tons of rigor in the sales process, but you might not be really good at asking for help, or. So like, just because somebody has 1 or 2 of the things, they might not have all of the things. Or just because maybe somebody's a CEO and they grew their business to $100 million or whatever, right? Pretty much they're a pretty good leader at that point, but there's still strategies in here that are going to work for them. So you introduce the problem, you say why it had to be you tell the myths that people typically believe about this, and then you share the tool that you're about to give them, and then you teach the tool a lot. In this case, again, even though I had 3 pillars, it like every pillar, it might take 1 or 2 chapters to explain, or 3 chapters or 4. Again, my book has 16 chapters. And then you summarize it. Again, like you just kind of, you know, what was the point of the last few chapters? and then you commission the reader. And this part's really interesting because, I mean, whether you own your own business, whether you're climbing the corporate ladder, whether you're a consultant, what are you hoping to get out? What are you hoping to get out of this book? How are you hoping that this helps you climb the corporate ladder or helps your business, right? And so for me, the irony is I've evolved 100 times since when I wrote the book. And it's not like it just says it on like one page, but it's like I was asking for consulting business as a result of this book. And so you say, one thing I love to do is help language service providers with implementing the strategies that I learned as a sales leader into your organization. Or one thing I love to do is help companies better train their sales leaders. And so a cannabis company brought me in the last 8 months, and I worked with their VP of sales. She was promoted and had no background in sales. This is a very common story, right? She had no background in leadership, and she knew how to be a killer individual contributor, and she was leading this team of like 5 people. And so they brought me in. I consulted with her every other week for like 3 or 4 months. I mean, Maggie is absolutely amazing. And I helped her work through some of the particularities of like carrying her own book of business, but now also leading the team. And so those are some of the things that I would have commissioned for in this book. My second book, because now I'm back to working full time, but I'm also continuing to keynote, and I've got this community in the background. My second book will be more about like bringing me onto bigger stages and bringing people into my community, right? And so it kind of depends on where you are and with your journey and like where you're trying to get. You might want to speak on the first stage ever in your industry for free. Like that could be an amazing place for your book. I want to summarize here at the bottom where it says like one core concept in each chapter. 2 of the women on this call, they dropped. Marianne, you're here. And Tinsley's here. So 2 of the women on this call I was talking to, ironically, on Friday. That seems like years ago. That seems like years ago. And they have both started their book. And we were talking, especially with Tinsley, I was talking with her about structuring her outline. She's already in the point of her outline, but like how her outline had kind of gotten away from itself, and like how to simplify the outline to make it so that there's one core concept in each chapter. Now you, the author, get to ultimately make those decisions, but like if you saw in the chat, most everybody here likes something that's more of like a quicker read. And I think as humans, we're like, oh, cool, I'll read 1 chapter and then go to bed, or I'll read 1 chapter before I have to pick up my kids from school, right? So it's like giving the readers what they want. And if you put one core concept in each chapter, this is amazing. You could get on podcasts, because this is part of the strategy I'll share on the next slide or 2. Like you'll get on podcasts and you can teach, you can share that concept from that 1 chapter. Or you can get on stages and you can talk and you can deliver 1 chapter. I mean, you can talk about the whole book, you can talk about lots of different things, but like make it as simple as possible for the readers to follow along, to not get lost. Put everything else in your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th book. And I get that feels daunting because we haven't even written our first one yet, right? You want to ultimately make it so that every chapter can work independently, but that it also works cohesively as a group. I'm going to teach on this, and then I'll ask questions. If anybody has questions, you can pop them in the chat if you want. I lost the chat, but I'm going to zoom. Oh no, here it is. Okay, yeah, you can pop the questions in the chat. I'm just looking. Okay, and I will address questions next. We have a couple more slides, as you can see, because I really wanted to make it so that like you feel inspired to walk away and be like, okay, cool. So far, we've talked about like the number one thing you want to think about when you're writing your book is an outline. It's like, what is your book ultimately going to do? Like, how is it going to flow? Something that's very, very important is your tool. So it's like, what is the thing that you're teaching them? And the tool, it's a system or a sequence, right? Or a phrase even that your audience can use to get results. And you need to have it be approachable, and you want it easy to explain, right? And so, like I shared this earlier, it's like the hypothesis as it relates to the problem you saw, basically, right? So like my hypothesis was how to break down, how to give readers 3 pillars in order to become a better sales leader, right? I mean, it's like the more I talk about this book, and it's been a ton in this last eight months, it's like the more simpler. It couldn't get any simpler. If you want to be a better leader or a better sales leader, ask for help, find a mentor, be consistent, and continue to invest in yourself professionally. Like those are my 3 pillars. So, and then like you're teaching on this. So like, how do you reverse engineer? Like, how did you get to where you are? Then you simply, and it's not so simple, but like you would reverse engineer it. One of the things that I advise on, and this is in the next slide or two, is simply like, so I already mentioned at the beginning of your book writing process, you should absolutely use Canva, or if you lock arms with me, I will help commission it for you, is to get your book cover designed. You design your book cover, you create a very simple landing page, or not. More importantly, you create a very simple giveaway. I will show you mine, right? It's like 2 pages. If you've been in my masterclass, it's literally the things I give away in my masterclasses, right? So you create your book cover and you say, hey, I'm writing this amazing book. Come be part of my book launch. And oh, by the way, here's a giveaway of like 3 things leaders. Every time I do this, I get in trouble because I end up sharing something on my screen I'm not supposed to share, but let's see. beabettersalesleader.com/free. Can you guys see this website now? Yeah, okay. So this was my landing page. You don't have to do it on a landing page. It's very simple. I can help you. And this is 3 meaningful actions great leaders take every day. So my tool also happens to be 3 pillars, but this was like meant to give them something. I don't think it opens in the next window. I can't remember. Oh yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. So it's so simple. So you've just given me your email address, right? And I have now Kristin Book 2.0. I have this crazy, I've seen a couple authors now launch books. And the way I launched my book, I still hit bestseller status. I'm super happy with it. But I've seen other people go like real deep. And so I'm planning to do that for my second book in terms of just having more ways to collect email addresses up front, because that's the way that you ultimately commission your reader to do the thing that you want them to do and buy your books, right? But this is it. 3 meaningful actions. This is an intro paragraph, check in with your teams, follow up. Again, this is a sales thing. So follow up, check your HubSpot dashboards, and then innovate, right? And so my 3 things were those for this giveaway was that. And so this is my tool in action, because you want to start having people thinking about, oh my gosh, like I can't wait to start to read this book. There must be, if this is what they're giving away for free, there must be so much more amazing content to come, right? And when you start to get on podcasts before your book launches, which is a whole strategy in and of itself, right? Then you can start testing out some of your theories with the podcast hosts. And most podcast hosts give you the recording, and or obviously they post the recording somewhere. And so you can re-listen to it and you can incorporate all that content in your book. And or post book launch, you're going to get on a ton more podcasts, and you're going to use the content from your book in the podcasts. But one thing we'll talk about is research. So my whole strategy is like how to write a book in 3 months is to not go into a black hole for research, right? You really want to think about what you know the book needs to be written is already inside of you. It's because it's your past 5, 10, 15 years experience. So on this next slide, it's like all about like rapid writing techniques. And that does not include research. Research should be at the very, very end. Okay. Because ultimately you can write your book without research. I'm going to say that. That's crazy. You have permission to write your book without research, right? But most people include research. Most people include cited sources. I know I included some. And you're going to use your research to prove your theory. But again, you have to remember that your theory, your tool, your hypothesis is like already in you because it's based on all the experience that you've had. But another core strategy is to interview other subject matter experts that are similar to what you're doing. If you know Natalie Kelly's name, I just saw one of her blog posts from 6 months ago, is actually on one of these core topics that I coach leaders on. It's like this thought leadership topic. And I thought, okay, cool. And now I have a relationship with Natalie. And so I'm going to leverage Natalie next book and I'm going to interview her for my book. And you simply get on a Zoom like this, you record it with their permission, and you ask them a series of questions and you have a one-to-one candid conversation with them. You use those conversations. You're going to line up like 20 of those conversations as part of your book writing. You use those conversations to prove or disprove your hypothesis. Because you certainly don't want to write something that you thought was like totally logical. Oh, I thought you could be a better sales leader if you asked for help, if you were consistent, and if you sought to develop professionally. But I was wrong because everybody's saying the opposite. So you just have to like, adjust at that point. But that's not going to likely happen. You use the interviews and then you can put the context of those interviews, again, with their permission, into your book. And so it becomes a part of research. These interviews are super ninja because with technology now, either the AI that's in all of these calls is transcribing the call anyway, and you can take those transcripts, make sure it's okay, run it by your interviewee. Hey, I'm going to quote you in this way. Is that okay? This is what you said. They say, yeah. Okay, move on. And you can use that AI. When I was writing my book, and even 8 months ago, the AI wasn't as prominent as it is now. Like I have my Fathom recording here. And so I would just upload the Zoom calls to rev.com and spend $1 or something to have all of the video calls transcribed to get the words written. So I didn't have to like physically write the words, right? But my point is, you're doing these interviews and to prove or disprove your hypothesis, which ultimately is your tool, which is ultimately the thing that supports why you're writing this book. Okay. Oh, and this is a book. Your book is not your keynote. Yeah, one thing I've learned from being on stages as an individual these last several months is like, if you try to teach too much in an hour masterclass or teach too much on stage, it's too much. Too much is too much, which is why like the simpler you can write your book, the shorter the chapters, not stressing that it has to be more than 100 pages, right? Like the more you can put one concept in each chapter is just like the better reader experience you're going to have. Any questions so far? And then I've got 3 more fun slides. You can put them in the chat or you can come off mute. Okay. Is this helpful so far, you guys? Yeah, great question, Jen. So what about market saturation? There are thousands of sales books, but there is only one me. Or there is only one, I know you're not going to write a book in sales, but like there's only one you. And so it really is like there's a level of confidence that you have to have with anything if you're going to go on stage. I will tell you, it's interesting though that you said that, because in doing my research, so you're at the 99th yard line, right? Before you go to layout and before you get the editor, and now you're going to do your research. Okay, you don't do the research till the very end. You do the interviews and you do all the other things, but you do the research at the end so that you're not in a black hole doing research. And that is when I was like, holy cow, I do not want to be a sales trainer. I don't like, God bless the sales trainers. I had advice because I'm part of a community where I pay to get mentorship. And that is what saved me when I lost my job. I leaned all the way in to my expertise, which is sales, and I monetized my expertise. And I did what they would say is get calls, do calls. Instead of prescribing all these things that I could do for my clients, I simply had the calls with my prospective clients and asked them what they needed, and then truthfully said whether I could help them with that thing or not, and then built a consulting program around what they needed. But you've got these huge sales trainers out there, like selling stages and like doing like these sales things. So I think, Jen, to answer your question, is ultimately you're the only you, but also you'll find through writing the book more about, that's why at the 11th hour, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even want it to say the word sales. But I'm like, no, done is better than perfect. This is version 1, because I can come up with a revised version. And so the market on Amazon is oversaturated with all types of books. But yes, you can write your book and be in, you want to be in like a competition of one. That's it, right? Okay. So rapid writing techniques. This is amazing. Okay. So go on to Amazon right now and buy yourself a pack of 100 index cards. And I pulled up a spreadsheet, which I've now lost. Okay. So one thing I did, you guys can see my spreadsheet now, yeah? I'm gonna go to I'm gonna go to Q&A. Okay. One thing I did when I was writing I hate Excel for things like this, but, and I'm saying that so that you're like, oh, I'm not going to use Excel for this, but I would do this again for my second book. So I have along the bottom, I think you can probably see it, blog post, rapid writing, book title, chapters, outline, tool, interviews, marketing. I ultimately created a master Excel for myself for all these various things for the book. And I would actually recommend that for you. But the theme of this is you're going to take a pack of 100, whatever, 500, whatever it is. Oh, it doesn't have a thing. Okay. You're going to take a pack of index cards, and on every index card individually, you're going to write down a question about the book, about what somebody reading the book would want to know, about pillar 1, about pillar 2, about pillar 3, about the problem, about the reluctant hero, why you, why not somebody else, to Jen's question, right? Every single question that somebody could ask you about your book or your subject or why you're going to write down. And I do encourage you, and I know I shared the Excel, but I'm going to show you why. I encourage you to just go and your local Starbucks or wherever and do it on index cards. The strategy goes, flip every card over and write the answer. Okay, so I went to a 3-day, 2.5 day writing intensive where I found my community of future authors, and everybody was there to write a book in 3 months. And these are the strategies we learned. And we sat there writing our questions out and then writing on the reverse. And I don't like to write anymore. I mean, I have a notebook at the side of my desk, right? But like I'm often using OneNote, and I'm a much faster typer, I think we all are, than a writer. So you need to figure out what works best for you, which is why I decided while we were in Dallas for the writing thing, instead of writing the answer on the back, I wrote the questions in an Excel. Okay. Now this isn't the final version, which is why you don't see the answers. But then, so like, who are the experts in the space? How do you manage people who used to be your peers? How do you create a culture within your team? What do you mean by sales leader, right? Think about it. Like, take all the ambiguity out of the concept of what you're writing and ask yourself, if somebody's going to say, what do you mean, what's a sales leader? Write that as a question and then answer it. How do you manage people you inherit? How do you overcome imposter syndrome? What was your mindset at 24? Okay, right? So like the story goes, I was 24 when I got promoted. So what was my mindset then versus where you are now? What are the minimum tools to play as a sales leader? And guess what, you guys? Now with ChatGPT, you could ask ChatGPT, you could like set up the ChatGPT didn't really exist in February. I mean, it did, but like we weren't using it this way. But you could set up ChatGPT and you could tell it your book title, tell it your tool, you could tell it all these things, and then you could have it ask you 100 questions. And what I would do is I would copy or come up with 100 questions, or however many you have here, right? I had 119. And then on the right side, you're going to take the time, because this is the thing you need to do, right? No matter if you do any of the other strategies, do this. Either handwrite them or type them. Type the answers to the questions before you do anything else. You will be amazed that by simply asking yourself 100 questions, well, first of all, how hard it is to come up with 100 questions. But second of all, once you have all the answers to these questions, this ultimately becomes the framework for the book. Now I'm going to show you this. I'll come back to the spreadsheet. Let me just show you in real life what this looks like. So this is my table of contents, right? And so I put a reminder for myself up here. This is not mocked up for this. This is like literally what I used. And I put my own advice up here. Sell at every chapter. Keep every chapter short, right? You want them to know like what's in it for me. And so chapter 1 is, I personally, like I wanted to reference chapters later in the book in chapter 1 so that they knew to like go to those chapters and read them. Create trust with the reader, make it all about them. There has to be a better way, i.e. reluctant hero. Get them to take action and change. What is the tool? Teach the tool, right? Summarize and commission. And then here is where so I just didn't do it in one Excel sheet ultimately, but I took all 120 questions I had on that other spreadsheet and I put them I nested the questions under a chapter. And so when we were at the writing camp, once you had your 120 questions on note cards, some people, because they physically wrote the answers on the back, they were like spread out along a long table and they were like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I just like that obviously means they're visual too, but like for me, everything is like online right now, right? For me. So I did this. So I did chapters across the top. And again, what's the problem? I had to remind myself over and over and over and over again, like how to outline, because I had never written a book and I will do the same thing for the next book. So what's my story? I was promoted without an instruction book. Introduce the solution, why it works, what's 3 myths. So all of these questions are meant to like address the core of this chapter. What's the tool to my solution? Build on mindset, prerequisites, needed to know, show the research, okay? And then here are in chapter 5, I introduced the 3 pillars. In chapter 6 was pillar 1, chapter 7, pillar 2, chapter 8, pillar 3, okay? And then I know as like time evolves, I took it off Excel and finally into Word, right? But like I'm showing you different ways to use Word or Excel and to like write this book so that the whole idea is taking out the stress. Like nobody's asking you to sit down and just bust out, how many words does Tinsley say she has? Like 15,000 words, right? But if you put it all in a framework, you can answer questions, you can have the interviews, you can start to nest things where they should go. Because what I want you to do is, if you're serious about writing a book, is you need to block time from your calendar, from your week, from your month, from your day. 2 days a week for 3 hours at a time is how long you should be writing if you want to write a book in 3 months. Okay, now many people here might not want to. The first hour is to get into the flow. The second hour is to be in the flow. And the third hour is to juice whatever is left from the flow. But it does take your brain a minute. And when you're writing, turn off all distractions, all your notifications. I know my mentor, he stood up in the front of the room for like 45 minutes telling us how he had to like take out, like turn off his Wi-Fi, and he had to like write in a Word document that wasn't, how our brains are so wired to like oh, I have to fix this indentation, or I have to like bullet this, right? Right. Anka gets it, right? So like just turn that off if that's you. So this is how I was like, well, yeah, like I check notifications like it's my job, or like I'm going to care about the indentation, even though I'm probably going to change it. This is how I countered that. Was I did this question, I nested my questions under the chapters. I answered the questions online. And then what I did, and I looked for it the other day when I was talking to somebody, but like, I couldn't find it. I put everything in a massive Word doc, and I would just start there. And so I had like all these, like, you know, when Excel copies into your Word doc and it's all like squares around, like I just left. I'm like, okay, it's colored and it's not formatted and it doesn't matter. And I put everything for one chapter underneath this one huge Word doc. And then I started to scale back and I started to scale back. Now, as part of rapid writing, I guess a couple things. Write at an 8th grade level or below. So again, it's not like this scholarly piece of work, even if we're writing on engineering, Jen, even if we're coming up with LOC certificates for university, write at an 8th grade level or below, because this is just, first of all, how people are consuming content, and second of all, like this is how we are trained to read. Double, triple everything. There's a guy named Tim, not Tim who's here. Tim, God bless him. He was in my writing class. His book has not come out yet, not for this reason, but he shared in our private group, oh my God, he lost everything. Like literally his computer crashed. And like the Apple store, like nobody could find it. And so back it up. So I use Dropbox and I use Google Drive. And I just kept 2 files of mine, which like maybe is a little risky, but like take 2 or 3. So every time you're saving, just save it again. Map your table of contents first, and then close your eyes. This is what I did. Just like close your eyes and type. So if you're doing like 3 blocks of time. Now, another thing I did was I blocked myself because I have kids. Like a lot of you guys know, I have like a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I had to physically take myself to a local hotel and like stay there for 2 or 3 nights. I figured out after doing it once, like one night wasn't enough, because just like when you're writing for 3 hours, it takes 1 hour to get into the flow. So I talk on stages about productive procrastination now, because I was in the hotel room getting a lot of stuff done, but nothing to do with my book. And so it would take me like a minute. But then I went back to that same hotel every single time I was getting away. And I would use that hotel as like now my motivation. And I came up with just like, I had like a game plan when I was there. And so figure out what that means for you. Is it your current office? Is a different house in the room? Like, is it the Starbucks or the Whole Foods? Like, where is a place that you can go to write? Okay, get started now. Is this stuff helpful, you guys? This is so good. Yeah. Okay, so a lot of the stuff I've already talked about. There's so many more strategies, but this is perfect timing. So we got like 9 minutes left. Again, I can stay a little long, but get out of your own way. I mean, I also coach on this too, right? It's like how to take action, how to just put one foot in front of the other. Rome wasn't built in a day, like fail forward. How do you eat an elephant? All of the sayings are so true. This is not your literary life's work. This is your first book. Your first book. I know when I was another thing that I did here is here when I was coming up with my book title, right? So like I wrote out up here like what I help leaders give their team confidence, tools, and capabilities to achieve better outcomes. And so I was like coming up with like different titles. Like your title should be aspirational, and your subtitle needs to include 2 to 3 keywords, SEO keywords, right? And so again, I can help you once you get this is what mine looked like, right? Yours can look anything you want, but like get it to a point where you know broadly what your tool is and like what you're going to write about. And then, my mentor is the one who ultimately helped me come up with like taking all the things I had suggested. I came up with Be a Better Sales Leader, and then it's the proven systems to unlock greatness within your team. And I know I was talking about like what to do now, because you need a title and you need a subtitle, right? Because you also need your cover art. So you write the book title first, which also sounds a little bit backwards, but you're going to market your book from the beginning, right? So book cousins are books in the space that have been previously written. Yeah, so Conversations That Win Complex Sales. The Challenger Sale is a book I reference all the time. So sometimes it's going to be a book that you have read a million times and like reference, but do some research. Go to books, Barnes and Noble, or look on Amazon, right? And type in your topic broadly and find book cousins. These are the books that are written on similar topics to yours. And you want to try to skim through them. So a library works well for this too. You want to try to skim through the book, and then I don't think I have it. No, okay. I have a Word doc. I have a Word doc that I put together when I was doing this exercise. And you write down, I screenshotted the book cover, because you're going to want to take a screenshot of the book cover too, because it's going to influence your book cover. Okay. So like, what do you like about certain book covers? What do you not like about certain book covers? So you're doing all of this at once. Screenshot the book cover, write out its title, its subtitle, who is the audience, what is the style of writing, was it successful, how did the author monetize it? Okay, do that 10 times. These are your book cousins. And then naturally from there, you'll have like 2 or 3 books that you prefer. Now, also, when you think about the title of your book, it could be one word. It could be something shocking. It could say, mine says what it says it is, right? So, but like it could be The One Thing is actually the name of a book. So, and it talks about how to simplify your life by doing just one thing. So like think about what your topic is, and then use something like this spreadsheet to come up with like iterations and options and play around. And again, now ChatGPT, like you could play around with it, right? So this is where I started coming up with like just a ton of different ideas. Okay. And then your subtitle, we said it's got to have key search terms. You want to make sure that it has like SEO or keywords in it. So like the title could literally be a word. Isn't there a book like called Fuck It or something? Or like it literally could be that. And then the subtitle actually explains what it is, right? In this case, because my title says what it is, my subtitle is like the proven systems to unlock greatness within their teams. You don't need to fix a problem in your subtitle. Maybe use words like how, why, or what. I didn't, but again, these are the suggestions. Shocking, secret, surprising. A lot of my keynotes now have titles like shocking or secret, the secret this, the secret that, right? Okay, so this is all about how to get started now. Title, subtitle, book cover. And then you want to come up with the lead magnet, the giveaway that we talked about. Okay, so now in the interest of time, if this isn't enough, or if you're like, Kristin, tell me more. So I am going to do my first ever live event. It's going to be over a weekend. It is going to be at the hotel that I wrote my book in, right? I'm super excited because this slide is hard to read, not on purpose, but kind of. There are so many other strategies. So just like I learned in a weekend session how to write a book, right? And leave that session feeling empowered, having confidence. I want you to have the confidence of, increasing your bestseller status, and why you should care, because how that could help you, how to get clear on your audience, your book title and subtitle strategies. And if you do come to the weekend, then we'll do some of the work ahead of time. I'll have your cover designed with your input, using a designer, using your book cousins, coming up with something. Honestly, I didn't picture this. And a lot of people in my book camp, they hated their covers and they sent them back like 10 times. I was like, no, this works. Like, I'm good. Like, let's go, right? So it's up to you in terms of it's your book. But we want to get the book cover done. We want to get the title and the subtitle done. And we want to set you up to start collecting emails, because then you're going to have a whole launch plan. So like while you're writing, you're launching your book. And so when you do those two things in tandem, you're not at the end of 3 months or at the end of 3 years having wrote a book. You're like, holy crap, not only did I just write a book, but it's literally launching. So my book hit bestseller status day 1 of being on Amazon. And that is the goal. And that just takes all the pressure off, right? And then from there, you build the momentum. And a lot of that momentum is podcasts. Thank you, Anka. Right? Podcasts that you get on, that you add, there's a strategy for like, how do you find a podcast host? And what do you say to them in the DM? I guarantee you, if we look at the DM, I'm pretty sure I sent you a DM, right? That it is like the script in which I learned to say like how to ask a podcast host to be on their show. You want to get like an endorsement for the top of your book and lessons learned from my back cover, and just like there's so many things. And so I want to share all of those things with you, and I will be writing my book alongside of you. So questions, I can stay. This is it. This is a lot. Feedback, ideas. What do you guys got? Thank you. Anybody? The cool thing is, so like replays, yes, this was recorded. Thank you, Lauren. Yes. Yeah. So I will share the recording, not my personal documents, but I will share my personal documents with anybody who wants to come to Long Beach and join me. So like this whole time I've consulted, this whole time I've done master classes, I'm literally like one of my New Year's goals is to continue to give everything away, right? Like how can what I know benefit you? How can you use that to benefit yourself or benefit others? And so, yeah, I will hopefully do another book masterclass here in the next, I don't know, week or two. I'll share this recording, and there's so many more amazing things that I could also help teach you if you're open to learning about it. And we could talk about your book title, we could talk about the subtitle, we could talk about the cover art. So I'm happy to be a set of eyes or ears, as you start to write, or as some of you continue to write in your journey. Yeah, Laura, where are you? Because I know there's a few people here that are from out of.
I'm in the UK.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely can't make it to Long Beach, unfortunately.
Yeah. You know what? The thing is, because I know everybody dropped now, but even Anka, she's in Madrid. Well, even Brenda, she's in Argentina. So I did think about my first masterclass. I did think about making it virtual, doing something virtual. Would you be interested?
Yeah, I think something like this is really good to help motivate one another, because it's easy to get caught up in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely, by Brenda. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me marinate on that a little more and think about it, because
Okay.
the one I went to was in person, but I also know that I knew there's several people here and that registered who's not here, who are not from the States, first and foremost. And then I'm just like, how could we do it virtually that it would feel the same impact, So yeah, thank you for that question. I will.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to go now because it's my
Okay.
evening time. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Okay, I think we are all wrapping up. Well, thank you for staying till the end. If you have any other questions, no. Okay.